Hello, everyone, and welcome into our very packed studio. I'm Alexis Yunes, and look at this five-a-side CONCACAF team I have assembled here. I did get things wrong, though, because I went with two goalkeepers on either end, but Casey Keller...
Try to score on both of us at the same time.
Exactly. Casey Keller, Hercules Gomez, Shaka Hislop, and Mauricio Pedrosa finally gracing us with his presence from one of his 50 million shows on ESPN.
Thank you. It's a special day. It's a special day. Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, we'll see if Mauricio is still feeling vibesy after we talk about Mexico's draw at next year's World Cup, because yes, indeed, today was the day, the draw for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. We were waiting for it, and we finally got it. It took some time. It took longer to get the groups than it takes me to get ready to go out on a night out. But you know what? In the end, we got there. And of course, we're going to be focusing on all of the CONCACAF teams, mainly the three host nations, the USA, Mexico, and Canada. And of course, we're going to kick things off with the U.S. men's national team. They were drawn in Group D, and just have a look at their opponents. Some familiar faces in Paraguay, Australia, and then they await the winner of a UEFA playoff, which could have Slovakia or Turkey. Well, U.S. men's national team manager Mauricio Pochettino, of course, was in attendance. Let's listen to what he had to say after they found out their group.
I know the focus, you said this earlier, the focus over the next 6 months is on your team, improving your team. But now that you know at least two of your opponents, like, what does that look like in terms of scouting them, the work you have to do? And is it at all difficult that you don't know yet who the third opponent is?
Yes, the problem is rather to have three teams to scout, we have 2 + 4. No, because we need to scout the 4. Now from here to March, we are going to, to amplify. Yes, the numbers of team that we need to observe, because now we have, of course, Australia and Paraguay, but we need to add another 4 teams. And be prepared, all the people in the analysts, and to start to work now, because we cannot wait until March and then start to work. No, we need to be ready from now.
All right, well, like I said, I assembled quite the team here at the desk, but it would not be complete without Jeff Carlisle, who has been freezing but working very hard over in Washington, D.C. Jeff, you, of course, were at the draw. Just tell me what the vibe was like after the U.S. men's national team camp found out their group.
I think the vibe was that, okay, this is doable. This is going to be a manageable group. It could have been a lot worse. I mean, the U.S. avoided Norway. They avoided Italy in pot 4. The team they got out of pot 2, Australia, was kind of one of the lower-ranked teams in that pot. So I think the vibe is like, okay, it's good that they know at least 2 of the teams that they're going to play, and they're confident that they can get out of that group. I think they should win it, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I think there's some real banana peels, if you will, that if the U.S. doesn't bring their A game, they could find themselves on the losing end of a score, and then things get super complicated. I mean, I remember the vibe after the 22 draw, and it was England and Wales and Iran, and everyone was saying, oh, okay, they should get out of that. And they did get out of it, but there were some dicey moments. And so I have a feeling that what we're gonna witness next year is something similar. I think the U.S. will emerge out of Group D, but they're going to be tested. They're going to have some difficult moments that they're going to have to overcome, and do what they can to get out of that group and into the knockout stages.
All right, so doable, manageable, some even daring to call it easy, Casey. I think they're getting a little excited there. But as Jeff said, some banana peels could be in there as well. How did you see it?
Yeah, that's the way I saw it. I mean, it's not going to be easy. I mean, we're not France, we're not Spain, we're a good team who's going to play against some other good teams. But there's not that one team where you're going to go, even if it ends up being Turkey, there's not going to be that one team where you go, wow, that's a world power that we have to worry about. So the advantage of being at home definitely plays into it. But it's 3 teams plus 2 teams plus the team that comes out of the playoff that is very manageable. And I also think it's going to be a group that can take points off each other. To where if you do make a mistake, it's not going to be two teams with 6 and then going into, I just don't see it that way. I think it's too even of a group, but I feel the U.S. should advance, and I think they could, win the group. I wouldn't say they should win the group, but I said I think they could definitely win the group.
Herc, what's the word you would use to describe this group then?
I think it's a trap group. That's the word I would use.
So not quite as manageable as everyone's kind of alluding to.
Well, I think Jeff was right in the money. You avoid some teams like Morocco, you avoid some teams like Colombia, you avoid some teams like Norway. There are certain teams in Italy, in pot 4, there are certain teams you can avoid, and you get some lower-ranked teams. But these lower-ranked teams, in theory, as Jeff said, that you get, they're very good teams. Gustavo Alfaro's Paraguay, it's not the same Paraguay that lost to Costa Rica in the Copa America 2-1. They saw Gustavo Alfaro with Costa Rica and they said, hey, we want some of that, bring him over. They lost 1 game out of 12 with Gustavo Alfaro. And they beat the likes of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, all teams that are formidable teams in South America. They gave up 6 goals in 12 games. They are defend first, they are gritty, they are difficult to play against. They have a few special players in transition. They could complicate any team in this tournament. You got them in your group. Then you have Australia. It's another very good team, a team that's very good that went to Asia to better their level. They did well in World Cup qualifying, had a run of like 9 games undefeated, competitive games. Out of those 21 games that they played competitively, they lost once. It's a team that defends first. They've got some interesting players playing in some top 5 leagues. So they got 2 teams right there that are low block defending teams, what the U.S. men's national team struggles against. They struggle breaking that type of team down. And then, oh, by the way, it could be Turkey. If it is that team, you've got the likes of Arda Güler, Yildiz. You've got some very good players on that team. We already saw over the summer what they did to the U.S. men's national team. This set of players from the U.S. men's national team with Mauricio Pochettino, if you don't take care of business the right way, forget winning the group. I'm not saying you're going to get grouped because in this format, it's going to be very difficult. You've got the best third-place teams, 8 of them going through. It's going to be very difficult for one of these host countries to get grouped. But those who think you should win it and cakewalk easily, I don't think it's going to be the case.
Well, we know where Mauricio's loyalties lie, so we're going to get to him last. I'm going to go for a more balanced, objective view and look for no further than our Shaka Hissap for this one. Shaka, from the outside looking in on the USA's group, what do you think? Where do you sign? That it could be a trap group or manageable, doable?
I'm with Hook on this. This is a trap group. No, at the same time, you talk about the U.S. as being the pot 1 team in this group and the expectation that comes with that. I think all 4 teams, if Turkey is the one who wins the playoff, all 4 teams come into this group thinking that we can win it, or we can at the very least get out of it. There's an expectation to get out of it. But then you look at all 4 teams, and I think there's an expectation coming into this tournament, there's an expectation that the United States at least gets to the quarterfinal. I'm not sure that there's an expectation that Paraguay, Australia, or indeed Turkey get to the quarterfinal. There's a hope. If you put together a decent run and things go your way, you can get that far. But I think as we sit right now, there's an expectation that the U.S. gets there. And you just wonder how that pressure, or lack of it, how the pressure plays off on the U.S., or that lack of pressure in terms of getting that far, boosts the others.
You know what adds to that expectation, Shaq, is that the U.S. men's national team just in the recent windows faced off against Paraguay, faced off against Australia, and they beat those 2 teams. But they faced off against the B teams, an already qualified Australia, already qualified Paraguay, who the coaching staff was evaluating players and look at others. It wasn't the strongest team they could field, and yet you beat them, so you're saying, I've already seen this team. I feel good about myself here. And while that may be true that you could feel good, it gives you a false sense of hope that I'm a little worried about.
Mao, let me bring you in. I know, of course, a lot of your focus is on El Tri, and we will get to them definitely in the show. But as a Mexican looking at this, your rivals draw, what are you feeling?
It's a manageable group. And what I would say is, to Shaq's point, if I'm Paraguay, if I'm Australia, I'm saying, whew, I avoided Spain. I avoided Brazil. I avoided Argentina. I get to play against a team that's more up to my level. So that's why I feel it's more a level play field in terms of strong teams. Now, that being said, I feel that the U.S. men's national team should advance. Are they favorites to win the group? the odds maker have them as the favorite to win the group, but it's not going to be that easy. And my big question is, what U.S. team are we going to see? Are we going to see the guys playing in Europe consistently, or are we going to see the less experienced players that Mauricio Pochettino has played in recent games? And experience is a big factor because the pressure of playing at home, and as Herc said, teams are going to play low blocks. You're going to have the ball. Can you open up those strong defensive sets? Experience plays a role. Are those experienced players going to be a part of that team? We don't know. Only Mauricio Pochettino has the answer for that question. But that being said, I feel that the U.S. should advance, and in my opinion, they will win the group, regardless of who advances in the European playoff.
Well, interesting points there brought up by Mauricio, and we're definitely going to touch on them after this, though, because as he was saying, we don't know what the USA squad is yet, but one person that I think a lot of us are expecting to be part of that World Cup squad is Tyler Adams. We have some reaction from him reacting to the USA's group.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, excitement, I think. I think it becomes a lot more realistic now that we know our opponents. Obviously, a huge positive in terms of preparation that we've played both of these teams recently and possibly the third team in Turkey if they qualify. So, yeah, full of excitement.
Full of excitement, and why not? This is always a very hopeful and ambitious group there. If we have a look at the odds there to win Group D, Casey, what did you make of them, and also what did you make of what Tyler had to say?
Yeah, I think Tyler makes the point. It's very valid. I think the part that everybody was talking about earlier is that expectation based off of the experience level that this club has. To me, a World Cup cycle always started with the qualifying draw, then the 16, 18 games it took you to get there. Then it was that celebratory moment with your fans and your teammates and your staff and everybody when you did punch your ticket. And then you had that little bit of a break before the draw who you found out. The fact that we've been in this World Cup for 8 years, and then everybody starts qualifying and some teams start getting in, and it just doesn't have that factor where you've gone through this grind, you've gone through this cycle, you've gained, hey, this guy showed up in this difficult moment, because every cycle of qualifying, there's those difficult moments. It's a road trip, you need a goal, you need a draw, you need a point, and there's so many players, to Mao's point, that haven't been through that. So now they got to get to a point where in front of home crowd, with a group that you're expected to do well, the bookies expect you to do well, the fans expect you to do well, and now you have a group of players that have never been in that situation. And yeah, so I have a funny feeling that as we get into March, in that next window, you're going to see a much more heavy Europe experienced team.
Look at the way Paraguay qualified, the way Australia qualified. It wasn't easy for them.
Never is, Mount.
It's never easy, but especially for these nations. It was, so they come to the World Cup with a competitive nature that the U.S., Mexico, and Canada don't have. They haven't been in this sort of competition.
So you feel that puts them at a disadvantage heading into this?
That is a disadvantage for the U.S. And even the team that qualifies from that European playoff, right? They're going to be 3 months out of a very, very tough process. So that element, it's also going to play against the U.S. men's national team, Mexico and Canada.
I think the thing that kind of makes me laugh, too, is this whole idea of this preparation, right? I don't know who's going to be fit. I don't know who's going to be playing for their club.
Yeah.
Go back to the Euros in the 90s. When Denmark gets in,
They weren't supposed
because
to.
Yugoslavia, because of the war,
Correct.
and they were on the beach on vacation because they weren't in the competition, and they win it. So I think there's a really, really valid point there about not being pressed, not having to really compete to get to this point.
Well, if there's one thing, for example, this Paraguayan team has done is compete. When Gustavo Alfaro joined the team, they were dead to rights. That's where they were. They were nowhere near the World Cup picture. You look at where they left off in the standings, and it says 6th place. They were 1 point off of 2nd place Ecuador. that's how tight the World Cup qualifying process was in South America. That's how good this team was in the second half of the World Cup qualifying. They are not a team you want to take lightly. So if you're not on your day, and I know they're very excited to play, and he should be. Tyler Adams should be very excited to potentially captain a second World Cup and into some country. We've seen what a home World Cup can do to some of these players. They'll live off it for the next 30 years. That's literally what it can do to them. So they should be very excited. But you don't want to be known as the team that squandered that opportunity.
All right, well, as Casey brought up, it seems like the bookies are expecting big things from this U.S. men's national team, as well as the fans. But let's see what Mauricio Pochettino is feeling in terms of the expectations for his team.
It happens sometimes in America, and not just in football, in the Olympics and many sports. All of a sudden, in the World Cup year, now everybody starts watching. Maybe they weren't always before. And pressure comes from that, and maybe it's good pressure. Do you think it's good pressure in that way to have?
I think it's good pressure. Put the pressure in the competition and to compete. And the expectation is good because put the good stress in your body. Again, I don't want to be, we need to be careful the message that we are going to send, because every time that we are here talking, the players are listening. And the important thing is to put pressure and to try to be better, us. That is the challenge. It's not to put pressure to say, oh, we need to win, or we should win, or we should be better. No. It's to put pressure. The good pressure is about to be better us. The challenge is be better today than tomorrow, and after tomorrow. And in 6 months, be a better team than today. That is the good pressure. It's not the pressure of to put expectative and to say, should win this group because the opponent No, because if not, it's a big, wrong mindset. Because I think we need to be very intelligent in the message. Because I think the motivation is to play with our share in front of our fans and perform. And for sure, if we perform, because we have talented players, we will be close to win, and that is going to be the most important thing from here to start the World Cup.
All right, Mauricio Pochettino there just talking about how we need to be careful where we are putting the pressure. But Jeff, ultimately the buck stops with the manager. No doubt that this is going to be his biggest test as U.S. manager. Now with all the talk of this being a manageable group for the U.S. men's national team, do you feel like this has now increased the pressure on Pochettino?
I don't know if it's increased the pressure on Pochettino. I mean, certainly there are expectations, but I think those are expectations that he's comfortable with. I mean, this is a guy that has managed some of the biggest clubs in the world. He's managed Paris Saint-Germain. He's managed Chelsea. I mean, he took Tottenham to a Champions League final. So I don't think it's anything that he isn't used to. I mean, in terms of pressure on the players, I think that's what Pochettino's been trying to create for the last 6 months. I mean, ever since, the debacle that was the Nations League. He has been trying to make a situation or create a situation where nobody's job is safe. And I think he's succeeded in that. And I think that has been reflected in the performances. So I think, I don't sense that this team is feeling pressure. I think they're feeling excitement. I mean, I think, they've been waiting for this draw. They've been waiting for the World Cup to come. And so, I think these guys are pumped and really motivated to give everything they can. I mean, Pochettino did say one interesting thing. He talked about the movie Miracle, and he talked about making the right team, not necessarily with the best players. They had to be the right players, not the best players. And so, I think, that's just a continuation of the kind of environment that he's created. And the players, again, have responded. I mean, Tim Ream was talking about it today, about nobody's job is safe. And every time they come into camp, they know they have to give their best. So, yes, there will be an increase in pressure on the team a little bit, but I think it's nothing that they can't handle.
Chaka, as Jeff just said, you know, Mauricio Pochettino, of course, being a manager of some really big clubs, he's no stranger to high-pressure situations at all. But this is a World Cup. This is the biggest tournament in our sport. So how do you feel he can fare on this stage? Do you feel like there is added pressure on him?
Well, yes, there is. But I also think that the point that Mauricio Pochettino is making is that you have to respond to that pressure. You have to invite that pressure. You don't go on and manage PSG if you're afraid of a little more pressure. You know, and I think there's a difference in connotation, or certainly the understanding of pressure when it comes to players, as maybe it comes to the view in public. As a player, you have got to invite. There's far more pressure playing. There's far more pressure playing for a Manchester City or a Barcelona than there is at Leeds. But if you're playing for Leeds, you have got to you've got to aspire to play for a Barcelona or Real Madrid. You've got to invite that pressure. And it's how you respond to it. And I think that's the point that Pochettino is making. As much as he has invited this pressure by taking on this job, he welcomes it. He wants those players to feel the same. He wants those players to look at this group, understand that while, yes, it could have been far more difficult, it also could have been a whole lot easier. But what do you do against the better teams in this group? How do you invite the pressure that this group brings? How do you invite the pressure of a quarterfinal, of a semi-final? That's what you've got to live up to. That's what you've got to look forward to. You can't shake that. And I think that's the point he's making and hoping for his team to respond.
Herc, we like to pick apart pretty much all of Mauricio Pochettino's comments and press conferences. What stood out to you from this comment and the pressure that he will have going into this?
Well, our Mauricio here just mentioned that he's very curious to see if it's going to be the European players or the players that Mauricio Pochettino has been playing lately. And Mauricio Pochettino just came out and said, I'm not interested in the best players. I'm interested in the best team. Anybody who thinks that the likes of Weston McKennie, Timothy Weah are lockdown starters on this team now, with the culture that Mauricio Pochettino has invited us to experience, you have a second thing coming. And I really do believe it. So the lineup that beat Uruguay 5-1, a historic win any way you slice it. Whatever team you think Uruguay, that's never happened before. The U.S. has never laid the smackdown like that on a South American opposition of that caliber. It was Matt Freese in goal. It was Mark McKenzie. It was Alex Freeman. It was Trusty on the left. It was Tolkien. It was Dest. It was Aiden Morris. It was Sebastian Berhalter, Diego Luna, Timothy Tillman, Haji Wright. That's not what most would say is the A team. And then after that historic win, he gets really upset because one of the reporters, Paul Tenorio, references these players not being regulars. So he's already stressed enough. Whoever you think the regulars are here, these European players, they don't exist for me. This is my team. Yeah. So I think he's stressing that again. And we shouldn't be surprised come World Cup time if those big European players that we think are the main players here aren't there.
Do you know what the best coaches do? The best coaches make their best players the right players. Because you don't have the luxury to just go, hey, let's just play this guy and see how it goes. You need your best players to be your best players. And that's what good coaches do. They don't just get to, hey, let's give this guy a shot and this guy a shot. Because then he always talks about, I want this football culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to Argentina and you just throw some guy in
14 months away.
And you lose a World Cup match. Thanks for coming. We'll get somebody in here who actually knows what they're doing. So you need your best players to shine for you. And then you need a couple guys to show up that kind of surprise you. But it has to start with your best players.
Mao, I saw you over there looking very pensive.
Yeah. Implementing culture takes time. It doesn't take a year, a year and a half. It takes a long time, especially for a national team, when you have limited time to work with the players. So I have a really, really hard time picturing the U.S. men's national team at SoFi Stadium with the likes of Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic is going to be a part of that, Timothy Weah, all of those great European players. I have a really hard time picturing the U.S. playing in the World Cup at home so without those players.
Yep. I'm with you.
What kind of conflict is that going to create
inside the squad. So I agree with you. It's Mauricio Pochettino's job to somehow bring those players to the same culture that he wants to be translated then on the field. And if he's not able to do that, then he won't succeed as the manager of this team.
Or you got to be very hopeful that you do, because if it fails, it fails without your best players, then you are absolutely destroyed.
What has Mauricio Pochettino shown us to make us feel like he's not going to do what he's been doing? And what has he shown us?
Well, you said it yourself. It's very different, a friendly match, a test match, from the opening match
it's what he is
one
doing.
of the home teams.
I could say it to you. It's what he is doing. What has he shown us to make us think, come World Cup time, everything's going to be different?
What do you think is going to happen?
I think he's going to do the same thing he's been doing.
Yeah.
I think he's going to do the same thing.
I'm a little bit torn here in that it is such a thin line that Mauricio Pochettino is treading here, and winning kind of answers all those questions.
Yeah.
But to that point, you see that team that makes light work of Uruguay. You make changes as we expect. I can sit here in the comfort of this chair, Trinidad and Tobago not in the World Cup. I can say whatever I want at this point.
He's a bit salty still. It's
Yeah.
dealing with
That's I'm getting therapy. But I could sit here and say that Pochettino has to play, these big name stars that he has. But you go out and you lose your opening game of the World Cup, having made wholesale changes from that. So not only people then start to question, well, why do you make those changes? Not only do people on the outside question that.
Now the inside.
You've got those players who put up those performances, because the old cliche in this game is possession is 9/10 of the law. And so those players who put out those performances go out, have a performance that has people questioning. Similarly, you don't make changes and you lose. Everybody's asking, well, how come you didn't go with Mr. McKinney and Gio Reyna? And so but again, to his earlier point, that's part of the pressure that this team has to be willing to take on. That's part of the pressure that he as coach has inherited.
But Chuck, I'm going to go back to the conversation we had just a few minutes ago, because none of these games have mattered.
Yeah.
If you're in a 16-game qualifying schedule, you can't afford to just be, hey, let's try this guy or let's try this formation. You have to have some sort of consistency to give yourself an opportunity to play consistently. And the one consistency in Mauricio Pochettino has been inconsistency. So we keep thinking, where are we going to start to see kind of a 8 players, 9 players of this, okay, here's my back line, and then maybe there's one change. Here's my midfield, and then there's maybe one change. Not 8 changes, 9 changes every time the team. So it feels like he has no idea who his starting lineup, which then gives us the feeling like we have no idea what the starting lineup is.
Well, Jeff, I think we have a couple more months for us to continue debating what team Mauricio Pochettino will field come June 12th in California when the USA open their World Cup against Paraguay. We talked about Paraguay being a familiar opponent for the USA, as Herc pointed out. It's not going to be an easy game. It's going to be nitty. It's going to be gritty. They're going to leave something on them, especially when we're expecting to see a much stronger Paraguay than we saw last time out in November against the USA. So is it a good thing or a bad thing that the USA will be opening their World Cup against such an opponent as Paraguay?
I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think, when you're playing a team like Paraguay that, like you said, is gritty, is going to bring the physicality, is going to bring the intensity every single time, you're going into that game knowing that you have to bring your A game. That if you slack off the slightest bit, Paraguay is going to take advantage. And so, I think it's something that, will get the players' attention, as if playing at a World Cup wasn't enough to get their attention on its own. I think the opponent will take it up, another notch and, really force the U.S. to mentally be engaged, physically be engaged, and really be intent on taking the game to Paraguay and getting out of there with 3 points.
Herc, as you said, you're expecting a much different Paraguay from this one. And as we said, it's going to be a nitty and gritty thing. So for you, is it a good thing that the USA will be opening against them?
Maybe in a sense that you get them out of the way.
Yeah.
That if you can get a favorable result, the worst is over. Because I think Paraguay will be the trickiest of the bunch in terms of how they defend and how they sit in a low block, and how the U.S. men's national team has historically not fared well in opening up those type of teams. Turkey, if we look at the summer series that the U.S. men's national team had, for 20 minutes they were in that game. Jack McGlynn scores a worldly, it's 1-0. It's not until Johnny Cardoso wants to play inside his own 6 across the face of the goal, a ball with the outside of his foot that goes right into Arda Güler, and then it's a goal. It's not until that moment that Turkey starts taking over. They're going to let you play a bit in this game. Australia's going to be like Paraguay. I just don't think as gritty, as do or die, as knife in between the teeth as Paraguay. Paraguay is going to be very tricky. Defensively, very sound, organized, killer mentality. Set pieces, they're very difficult to deal with. I think it's the most difficult team of the bunch because of how they could be defensively difficult to break down, which has always been very difficult for the U.S. men's national team. So you get them out of the way.
Here's my concern with playing Paraguay opening game. Opening games are generally cagey affairs.
Emotional ones too, of course.
Teams are coming into that opening game thinking, well, we can't afford to lose it. Primarily here, unless you're in Argentina or Spain, you can't afford to lose your opening game. And now you have this team in Paraguay who that kind of quieter, more defensive game suits them. That's how they play. They are going to sit in a low block and hope for that moment, and it will be a game of moments. And now, how do the U.S. approach in terms of their own openness? How high do they press? How free flowing does this game become? And so I just wonder if playing against who I think will be the most defensive of the other 3 teams in this group, how does that fare kind of give them the personality that opening games generally come with?
Casey, of course, Paraguay, Australia, and I think everyone is feeling it's going to be Turkey. Nobody's giving Slovakia any hope, but looking at
Germany,
those, if that is exactly.
Maybe Germany.
Yeah, so if that is going to be the 3 set opponents for the U.S. men's national team, who are you expecting the biggest threat from?
I think the firepower that Turkey has probably is the biggest threat that could put maybe the most fear in you in the way that they can score goals. Now, what you have to be worried about with a Paraguay and with an Australia is that you have a lot of the ball and then you kind of lose your balance. And then you get hit on a counterattack when you've had 60, 65% possession. Then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, we had 2-3 shots and then how are we a goal down right now? And then to Herc's point, as they then, get into more of a block because they have something to hold on to. So, yeah, I think Turkey probably would have the best opportunity to really kind of maybe be, more of a team that could maybe even have like an advantage in possession and score goals. But again, I like the draw. I mean, you're not going up against. Yes, we can say it's a trap. It's this and these teams, but there's no Germany in there. There's no Italy in there from years past. There's not that real, oh boy, okay, here we go. Here's a club that you're like, this team can win the World Cup. Nobody in this group is going, somebody from Group D is gonna win the World Cup. So it's
manageable.
Manageable.
In this manageable group, Mao, who do you think would pose the USA the most threat if Turkey is the one that gets through as well?
I honestly think it's Paraguay.
Okay.
Styles make fights, and this is a style that does not really fit the U.S. well. I go back to the latest international window. Paraguay played the U.S., but they also played Mexico, and I remember that game really well. Paraguay beat Mexico 2-1, and to be completely honest, they should have won that game 4-1. If it wasn't for Mexico's goalkeeper, Paraguay played the second half. Julio Enciso with those.
They're playing Mexico, Mao. I mean, come on.
What does that mean? What does that even mean?
I'll see myself out. I'll see myself out now.
The World Cup has just started for Futbol Americas right now. Casey Keller just kicked it up.
And I'm here for it.
We're gonna start
Here
seeing
for
some
it.
boceteros.
I'll roll the sleeves up.
I am so here for it.
Always ready. Don't worry.
Now I'm
I
going
love
deep
this.
with my breakdown of how Paraguay in transition is going to beat the U.S. 3-0. Here's why.
Okay.
The U.S. When the U.S. men's national team steps on that field at SoFi Stadium, they know they have to beat Paraguay. Paraguay, in order to advance, they don't have to beat the U.S. They would go back to their hotel happy with a 0-0, with a 1-1. And then they can try their luck against Australia and against another team that is going to have the ball and is going to attack, like Turkey, which, again, will play to Paraguay's strengths. The way they have those long passes, the transitions, that's going to hurt the U.S. They don't need the ball, and the U.S. is going to have the ball. So I'm calling it right now. It's Paraguay 4, the U.S.
Oh. Jeff Carlisle is with us, and I'll be interested to hear what he has to think. Jeff, we've heard potentially Turkey, but Mauricio, and I nearly called you Mauricio Pochettino, Mauricio Pedrosa is saying that it's actually Paraguay and that first game that's going to be the biggest threat for the U.S. How do you see it?
I mean, I think it depends on if Turkey gets through. I mean, I think, you know, Turkey is the team that I think is going to give the U.S. the biggest problems. I think, you know, they've got the attacking talent with, you know, Güler and Yilmaz. And so, I think, you know, they've got the quality. That's not to say that Paraguay doesn't have any attacking talent. I mean, everyone knows about Miguel Almiron. But I just think, you know, Turkey's attacking weapons are playing for bigger clubs at a higher level. And, you know, they showed how, you know, much the U.S. could struggle, you know, back in June. Now, granted, that was not the full U.S. squad. So, you know, you have to take that result with a little bit of a grain of salt. But, you know, I just look at the players that Turkey has, and, you know, I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. But, you know, each group, as it progresses, you know, kind of takes on its own personality. You know, last time it was the U.S., you know, tying Wales in a game that they probably should have won. And, you know, then they had to play England, but then they got a good result out of that one, and that set them up for the game against Iran. So, you know, you just have to take these things game by game. Certainly it's important for the U.S. to try to get 3 points in that opening game, but it's not a death sentence if they end up drawing that game. I mean, they just got to try to manage the group, manage the games as best that they can, and manage results as well. So, you know, I think Turkey is going to be, again, the biggest challenge for the U.S.